pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And why don't we start with the approval of the minutes of March 14th, 2022?
So moved.
And second by Bill. Any changes? Okay, let's vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, oppose, abstain, 3-0-0. Public participation. Brendan, can we take a picture? We have public participation.
We can take it off of the video.
You have a participant?
Yes.
Oh, for the record, sir, can you please state your name and address?
Hi, Peter Capola, resident representing the Historical Commission this evening.
I always wanted to say that. School committee does it and all that stuff, so.
It-
Okay,
It's good.
go ahead, Peter.
No, thank you for having me here tonight. In 2 years, the town will be celebrating its 225th anniversary, and in 4 years, the country will be celebrating its 250th anniversary. And in preparation for those events, the Historical Commission has a half dozen projects that will require the support of the Parks and Recreation to complete. So I was wondering if I could get onto the agenda, we can get on the agenda of the next, your next meeting so we can discuss those projects.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't see any problem with it. As long, it would be nice if we have all the members, so, but, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. And change of venue, the community garden. Brendan, I just want to thank you for turning the water on. We're already using it, so we appreciate the water being already.
You can thank Bill.
Bill, thank you. Appreciate it.
So Peter, we'll see you in 2 weeks?
Is
When's
that-
our next meeting?
We'll figure
Well,
out
we'll
the
let you know.
meeting at the
Okay.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whenever
Right.
it is.
yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That was great. Make sure we get a photo of that citizen stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion that we go out of order. Bill Boyven's here for the Community Preservation Act Committee to do a presentation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Bill, you want to come up?
Unanimously.
Yeah, yeah. And just for the record, I am a member of the Community Preservation Act, yes to, so I'm going to abstain from voting. Amy recommended that.
Passing those out? I'll do it if you want to start.
And if I speak, I'll speak as a citizen, when I speak.
We're gonna make you do that.
All right, good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak. I am representing the Yes Burlington CPA Committee, of which Kevin stated he's a member. The Community Preservation Act, which I will call the CPA for ease in the rest of the presentation, it's going to be a warrant article on the May town meeting. And the warrant article is asking town meeting to vote to put it on the ballot in November. So town meeting is not actually approving the CPA, they're just asking for it to be put on the ballot so the people can vote and decide if they would like, as a community, to have this act in place. And after the presentation, I would hope to gain this commission's endorsement of that warrant article if that could be so decided. So I'm just going to go through the few slides that I have here. You can follow along if you'd like, or just listen to what I have to say. The Community Preservation Act was passed in the year 2000 by then Governor Cellucci, and it was designed to assist program areas that preserve and improve a community's character and quality of life. Areas that previously had no steady funding source. The community has to fund police and fire and DPW and retirement plans and all this stuff. Big ticket items, and the other things like these 4 program areas often are struggling for funds. And the 4 program areas under the Community Preservation Act are open space, recreation, historical preservation, and affordable housing. And the way it works is, in the second slide there, that little purple bag down on the lower left is the state CPA trust fund. The state in 2000 set up this trust fund, and it gets its money by a fee placed on every transaction at the Registry of Deeds. So if a house is sold or purchased or refinanced, or even things like orders of conditions from the Conservation Commission, when they have to be registered or filed at the Registry of Deeds, there's a fee put on all those transactions. It's usually $50, some of them are 25. That money is dedicated to the CPA trust fund. Now, Burlington has been paying those fees. Every community in Massachusetts pays those fees on a regular basis for every transaction that takes place in the state. So all that money goes in. The only communities that can withdraw funds from that are those that are participating in the CPA. So that's what we're trying to do at this point. In order to participate, to become a CPA community, you must agree to place a small surcharge on real estate taxes. And it can be up to 3%. We are proposing 1.5% surcharge. Now, that's not a charge on the real estate value, it's 1.5% of the real estate tax. So our tax is about 1% on residential real estate, should make it 1.015%. It's a very small increase. We've elected to propose 1.5% because all the communities in Massachusetts that are CPA communities, that is by far the most common one that has been picked. It can be up to 3%. Some started at 3%. Some started lower. They started at 1% and voted to increase it to 3% because they like the program so much. But most of the communities started and have stayed at 1.5%. There are 187 communities in Massachusetts that are CPA communities. That's more than half the communities in the state. Represents 2/3 of the population of the state. And of the 187 communities, once you become a member, you can also elect to vote it out if you don't like it. The same process in reverse. You go to town meeting, say, I want it on the ballot can vote to get rid of the CPA. 187 communities, some have been in it since 2001, none have ever opted to get out. So that implies, I think, that this is a successful program in the eyes of the communities that are in it. Another thing that's important to know is that the funds, the local surcharge funds go into a fund in Burlington, an account that stays in Burlington, managed by the town treasurer. And each year, at the end of the fiscal year, the CPA, the state trust fund, looks at how much you've put in and matches a percentage. Last year, it was 40%. So that goes into the Burlington account as well. So every dollar last year that was put in by if we had been in it, every dollar that went in would have become $1.40. 40% return on your investment, which is a pretty good income return. And all of that money, the town surcharge and the state match, stays in that account in Burlington. I know some people have said, oh, the state can get their hands on it. They cannot. By law, it stays in the community, it is spent by the community, the projects are approved by the community, and they cannot be overturned by the state. So moving to the next slide, what does that mean, that surcharge of that magnitude, 1.5%? The average house in Burlington is worth $600,000. That's from the town assessor's office. This surcharge would add $75 to the real estate tax per year. So your roughly $6,000 real estate tax would become $6,075. Your quarterly bill of $1,500 would become $1,518. It is a small increase, but it is recognized that as an increase, there are those who would find any kind of an increase a challenge in the economy of the day. So we have instituted to propose including certain exemptions that are allowed under the Act. And the exemptions that we are proposing are to exempt the first $100,000 of property value, both residential and commercial, from calculating the surcharge. So your $600,000 house, we'd only look at $500,000 in terms of determining that percentage surcharge. And that's going to have the most impact on the smallest value houses and the smallest businesses in town. Also, we're going to have some income-based exemptions that we're proposing. And there's two of them. There's a low-income family exemption and a moderate-income senior exemption. And those income values that are shown there are determined by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development for each and every community in the country, and for Burlington, those are numbers for Burlington, Massachusetts. So if a low-income family meets one of those, makes, a two-person family makes $77,000 or less, they can apply for annually an exemption and pay none of the surcharge. They do not have to participate in this as far as making any of the surcharge payments. So that's the magnitude of the exemptions and the surcharge. There's a few pictures here showing you projects that were done in other communities, just to give you a glimpse of what kind of things. I'm going to get talking a little bit more after we get through these few slides about what can be done in Burlington. But you can see there's an outdoor swimming pool in Hamilton. Bike paths are big. Historical preservation is big. The Bedford train station looks beautiful. In outdoor open space, things like viewing platforms, boardwalks that have been done. There's some pictures there. Affordable housing, creating affordable housing. Tewksbury created affordable housing specifically for people with disabilities using CPA funds. And then there's a picture of a playground. Arlington turned a tired old playground into a modern and safe play space using CPA funds. I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically what this could mean for Burlington. Let's talk about the open space category first. What kind of things could be done with CPA under the open space program? There could be hiking trail improvements. There could be more parking at conservation areas. We could try to make some trails more ADA accessible, more wheelchair accessible, and things like that. We could acquire land adjacent to existing conservation areas. I'm on the Conservation Commission as well, and there were 3 different properties that came before us this year that abutted conservation lands, were privately owned, were undeveloped, and had wetland resource areas on them. All 3 of them ended up being developed. One is a 3-house cul-de-sac, one was a 2-house cul-de-sac, one is going to, planning to be an individual home. The CPA would allow the conservation to apply to buy those properties when they come up, and you can buy it. You can use CPA to put a down payment on a mortgage and pay for it with CPA funds over a period of years. But those type of things would be a valuable way to acquire and increase the size of our conservation lands, protect some of the existing open space from development. You could, of course, within the existing open spaces, construct benches, trail markings. The Vine Brook Aquifer is a big one for potential because, as you are aware, the MWRA connection is nearing completion. When it is completed, we're going to stop drawing water from the Vine Brook Aquifer, and that can become a more open public space. And to appreciate it and open it up to the public, there could be boardwalks, there could be walking trails, viewing platforms. It's a wonderful place to view wildlife, especially if you're a birder down there. There's all kinds of wetland birds and the forest birds and stuff like that. And those types of walking trails and maybe even bicycle paths or whatever, that area has been mentioned to us when the committee of bringing the CPA to town. We had meetings with the Chamber of Commerce, and they said things like those walking trails are a tremendous amenity for businesses in that area to bring people outside during their breaks or during their way to work, and it helps to attract their new employees because they are competing with surrounding communities for employees. So they said that this type of thing is something that makes them in favor of the CPA. And this Vine Brook Aquifer area was also part of there's been a 3-part public hearing about the Mall Road Corridor and Middlesex Turnpike initiative that our Economic Development Director has been leading. And she mentioned that whole Mall Road, Middlesex Turnpike, 3rd Avenue, that whole area in terms of trying to develop that into a more pedestrian-friendly, user-friendly space. That whole Vine Brook Aquifer was an important concept in her plans as well. So CPA would be a big factor in helping to implement some of that. Recreation. What kind of things could recreation do? Obviously, improving townwide bicycle and pedestrian paths. A couple of years ago, we did the recreation and open space plan and had public hearings. And one of the number 1 things that the people wanted to see was bicycle paths being improved in Burlington. Again, not only for residents, but the access for people to be able to commute to Burlington on bicycle. There's a lot of people who would like to come here from Arlington and Somerville and even Cambridge by bicycle. It's common in other communities. It's not a real safe and easy way to do that in Burlington. CPA funds can be used for things like hiring a consultant to analyze that and determine where it could be done, how it could be done, and make a proposal, which then could be funded. State-of-the-art playgrounds, outdoor adult fitness equipment, like was done at TRW. And that was a jointly funded program. That was funded partly by the town and partly by Leahy Clinic, if I remember correctly. That type of thing can be done with a CPA. It can be part of a partnership. CPA could pay for part of something and the town pay for another part of it. CPA could partner with a business like the Leahy Clinic to do a project. So those joint projects are allowed. A swimming facility was number one on the list of things people would like to see in Burlington. So this is something that, that picture that was shown of the swimming facility, that was like $1.2 million. That was completely funded by the CPA. CPA has some interesting rules. Why they were written this way, I don't know. We can only fund outdoor spaces. We cannot fund an indoor swimming pool, but we could fund an outdoor swimming pool. We can fund sports facilities, you know, a football field, but you cannot fund artificial turf. It's specifically written into the CP Act. But some towns have gotten around that cleverly. What they've done is they've used CPA money to prepare the whole place, to put in the running track, to even build the concession stands, and then the town paid for the artificial turf. So CPA didn't buy artificial turf, but the whole program was accomplished using significant CPA funding. Better lighting, ADA accessibility, all of those things could be done at recreation projects as well. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I should probably bring it up. Proposals can be submitted by anyone when this passes, and I'll get into that a little bit further. There's one slide about what happens after it's passed. Historical preservation projects, there's a number of things in town that would like to be preserved. I'm sure Peter Capola would be first in line to tell you what some of them are. But, you know, funds to purchase historic homes before they're torn down. We just lost the Reverend Simon's house down on Lexington Street, and the Historical Society would love to have done something to protect it, preserve it, move it, whatever that could have been done, but they sorely lacking the funds. I attended a meeting like this with the Historical Commission recently, and they were just saying how poorly funded they are. They have tons of things at the town museum that are just stuffed to the gills with artifacts and things people have donated. They don't have the funds or the staff to properly categorize it, or catalog it, I guess is the word, to even see what they have, what it's worth, if it's of value to Burlington. An old desk might not be worth anything, but if it was belonged to Reverend Simon, then it becomes something of significance to Burlington. So they need to go through all that to figure out what they have, what its value is, and be able to display it, and all those things. They're seriously lacking funds. Francis Wyman House, I visited with John Wyman there at the house recently, and he's an 11th generation direct descendant of the builder of that house, and he's struggling to achieve his goal, which is to turn that into a museum quality piece where people can, you know, have more outdoor, like school outings to it, or have more of a ability to open it up to have public go through it. It looks pretty on the outside. The outside's preserved. The inside is not preserved at all very well. It has a lot of work that needs to be done. And again, he's got artifacts in there that are not being properly stored, that are not being available to be seen. So he's now attempting to restore a historical barn on that site. So he would love to have some of these funds as well. And affordable housing, there's always a demand for affordable housing in town, more especially for seniors or veterans. Help with rental expenses. That's an interesting one, because when COVID hit, a lot of communities, a lot of people lost their jobs, either temporarily or permanently, and were unable to pay their rent, and were facing eviction. And many communities who had CPA found out that they could use their CPA affordable housing funds for rental assistance on a temporary basis to help these people. Sort of an unexpected thing. I don't think anybody actually thought in advance, hey, we can use this money for rental assistance in a pandemic. But when it happened, the rules that were in place for the use of the funds allowed for that. So that was an asset that happened that was a hidden benefit, I think. And housing for veterans, I mentioned that. So what happens in the process? Right now, we're hoping to get this through town meeting, to get it on the ballot. Then when it's on the ballot, if it passes, we become a CPA community. The next fiscal year, which would be July 1st of 2023, we would start putting the fee on the real estate taxes, and money would start going into our account at that point. At the end of that fiscal year, the state would then look at how much we put in and give us our first match. But once that money starts going in, it stays in, and what we have to do at that point is form a local CPA committee. And that committee has 5 members required within the act itself. 1 member each, a sitting voting member of the Recreation Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Historical Commission, the Housing Preservation, and the Planning Board. Those 5 members must be on this commission, or this committee. Up to 4 other optional members can be on the committee. Once the bill passes in November, we would then have to create a bylaw on how we're going to establish this committee, what other members might be considered on it. That's a separate issue after it's passed. But so there can be as many as 9 members of the committee. Just a couple more slides here. I'd mined the town meeting warrants to see what kind of articles in recent years had been funded by the town that could have been funded by CPA. And there were a number of them, and I've gone further back and got quite a few. I came up with over $1.5 million worth of things that could have been funded by the CPA. And, you know, some of them significant, just the tennis and skate park lighting, $220,000. Project Adventure course down behind the high school here was $116,000. Not only can CPA fund this, but let's just take, for example, one of these, the tennis and skate park lighting. That money came from taxpayer dollars in the town. If CPA were able to fund it, yes, there's taxpayer dollars involved, but there's also state dollars. So it would have been 1/3 less taxpayer dollars required for that project. It's basically 30% off from the taxpayer's point of view for projects that are funded this way. And there are certain things that you can't fund. I mentioned a few before, but clearly you can't, you know, I want to build a new fire station or something. That's not part of this. Or you can't put in sidewalks. That's specifically excluded. But because some of these things that are funded, that were funded, can now be funded by the CPA, it leaves more money in the regular budget as well available for things like sidewalks or the school system or other things that, you know, people are eager to fund. So that is pretty much my presentation. To sum it up, the real estate fees that support this whole system are already in place, and we're paying them every year. We always have since the year 2000. Half the towns in Massachusetts, representing 2/3 of the population, are in CPA communities. None of them has ever backed out, even though they have the option. Actually, probably 5 to 10 of them voted to increase the percentage after they started the program. It'll cost about $75 a year for the average homeowner. We're proposing the 1.5% surcharge. That 40% return was what it was in 2021. That percentage varies from year to year depending upon how much money goes into that state trust fund and the number of communities that are in the system. We're not the only ones that are trying to put it on the ballot in November. There's 3 or 4 others. So it could go from 187 to 191 or something like that in November. There are exemptions for low income and moderate income, and we're only asking town meeting to let the voters decide. So that's my presentation on it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, well, Bill, just one point is, Recreation is coming up with renovating Simon's Park basketball court this
Okay.
year. Price tag of $250,000. You know, the residents.
230.
230.
Yep.
Okay. The residents, you know, if they could save 40% on that by being members of CPA,
Exactly.
you know, that's $80-something thousand that it wouldn't have cost the taxpayers.
Correct.
And if you look at our 10-year budget, the recreation departments, there's almost every other year, there's a project that CPA could fund. Next big one's coming up is Simon's Park, the playground. You know, there's so many things that recreation could be benefiting from the Community Preservation Act. So
I didn't point out the way the money is distributed. The money comes into this pot in Burlington. The town treasurer actually has to set up 4 separate accounts. One is for affordable housing. One is for some reason they lump together open space and recreation. And then one is for historical preservation. So there's 3 accounts. Each of those accounts gets, at a minimum, 10% of the money each year goes into those accounts. The other 70% can be spent on any of them, depending upon what proposals come in. But something like historical preservation, if they wanted to take their 10% and not spend it for 3 or 4 or 5 years, let it grow, and then, buy a big piece of property, that's allowable. And you can always propose anything any year and spend more than 10%, but you're guaranteed 10%. And we're looking at, if we were participating in 2021, the total amount on the CPA fund for Burlington would have been about $2.2 million. So you're talking 10% of that is $220,000 that historical preservation would have guaranteed. They're falling off their chairs when they look at that. They haven't had that kind of funding for the things they want to do in a long time. And then, so each of those areas would have that at a minimum, and then the other amount can be spread depending upon the proposals. Proposals go to this committee. The committee decides, looking at them, if they qualify for the program and ranks them in priority. The committee then sends them to town meeting. And every single project must be approved by town meeting. There's no further approval by the state or any oversight. So,
All right, so questions
Chairman.
for Bill? Yeah. Feel
Excuse me,
free.
before I ask my questions, I'd just like to make a motion that the commission vote to approve the submittal of the warrant article that was discussed tonight to the May town meeting for a vote by the full town meeting members.
All right, yeah, Bill,
So I have questions even before that, so
I'm just putting the motion out there, normally, then we
Yeah.
discuss it.
all right, unusual, but I'll hold off voting, I guess, until I have questions. You don't
Okay.
mind? Okay, thanks.
can we hold it?
Yeah, that's, normally we put the motion on the floor, then we
motion on,
discuss
then
it, and then we
discuss.
vote on it. That's
Okay,
all, I
okay.
wasn't saying let's take a vote. I was just
Okay.
putting the motion out there.
Okay.
I'll hold back on that. if you want.
I suppose I'll second, is that how it usually
Okay,
works?
yeah, usually the chair doesn't second things.
Yeah, it's just familiar with the planning board, it does a bit differently.
Okay, so
but you have
open discussion.
Yeah, well, yeah, if it's still a public hearing. Yeah, so I guess my questions would be, for the 2.2 million, that's gonna be your estimate total per year, at least?
if the match stays as it was in 2021, yes. Last couple of years, the match has increased. Not only does this fee go in from the real estate transactions, but the last several years, Governor Baker has put in 10 million or 20 million from the surplus into this fund as well to boost it up and increase that percentage. So that's the other possible source of income for it.
And that includes the business aspect as well, so business real estate in addition to,
Yes, business is also part of this. We estimate, again, using the 2021 as an example, 600,000 would have come from residential taxes. $1 million would come from commercial taxes, and 600,000 from the state match. That's what would have happened in the previous year.
okay. And have you reached out to kind of the larger business community?
We have,
We have some fairly large real estate owners in town that probably would be contributing the brunt of the $1 million.
we've talked to we've officially met twice with the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Division or Committee, I think it is. And there were some big names on there from the big developers in town. And they said a couple of interesting things. 3 or 4 of the 10 people in the room said, I don't live in Burlington. I live in this other community that has the CPA, and I really like what it's done in my community. So that was interesting. That was independent of their vote for having it in Burlington. And then they generally decided that they couldn't officially endorse it because their bylaws don't allow that, but they did not oppose it. They thought that it would bring certain amenities, as I mentioned, to the areas where they really want to build up the attractiveness to employees, both prospective employees and current employees. Things like affordable housing are important to them because some of their employees in the service industries can't afford to live in Burlington. They can't afford to live where they work. And these restaurants and hotels are struggling to get buses from Lowell here to bring people in to work in their locations. So affordable housing was an area that interested them as well. We do have another meeting planned with that same group.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Couple of questions. Nice presentation.
Thank
Thank you very much. I had 2 questions, and you answered both of them at the very end of your presentation. who decides how the money is going to be spent? And you answered that question very well. And did you have an estimate as to how much money this would generate annually? And you answered that question. So I think it's a great idea. I have a recollection years ago of the state wanting to assess a tax on property owners when they sold their house. That's not part of this current presentation or the
No,
current.
the only thing that would involve here is if, when they sold that house, that would have to be registered at the, filed at the registry of
Correct,
deeds,
yeah.
and there'd be that $50 fee.
They
But I
pay the
mean, that's the
surcharge.
only connection, the CPA that would have.
Right. I think it's a great idea, a great proposal. It's going to do a lot of good things for the town.
Thank you.
I'm fully supportive of it.
Okay, so,
Motion is
Brendan?
made.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, Bill. Couple quick questions. Is there a differentiation in how the funds can be spent on, can it be spent on school property?
It can.
Okay.
The playgrounds on school property can be funded by this, yes.
Okay. And improvements to athletic fields on
The
town
high-
properties as well?
High school field, absolutely, stuff
Okay.
like that, yes.
All right.
Certain you cannot do it on things like maintenance.
Mm-hmm,
You can do it only for construction.
right.
So you couldn't pay somebody to mow the lawns, or, do something like that, or mow and feed
Right.
from the CPA. But the construction and the installation of an irrigation system or anything like that, yes.
Okay. I had another question, but it's since slipped my mind, so, sorry.
It happens to me all the time.
All right, I've been working with the committee for, it's probably 4 years now.
Yeah,
So it's amazing what the potential could be. And the town is already, people are already paying the deed fees and everything and contributing to CPA. And we're not getting anything back. Half the communities in the state are getting our money.
right.
And it's, residents want us to be as frugal as possible. Why wouldn't we get a 40% return on our money? I'd like to put my money in there and get a 40% return.
Exactly. That would be nice.
Was there an effort a number of years ago, at least kicking the committee off or something? I recall something before the planning board on
Yes.
that.
Yes,
Was
and
there-
2 years ago.
I recognized your face from somewhere, I think.
There was a plan to put it on the town meeting May of 2020. And then the pandemic hit in March, and everybody in town said, we gotta have, how are we gonna do town meeting? We had it outdoors, if I remember correctly. And they said, please remove anything that's not absolutely essential from the warrant.
Okay.
So we withdrew it. And we kind of regretted that we did, because in that time period around that May town meeting, there were like 4 other communities that passed it and got it on the ballot, and it passed in spite of the COVID going on. So if we had put it on there then, we might have had it in place by now. But yes, there was an effort then.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Brendan.
I
had his
remembered.
question.
See, that happens too, it comes back.
It's in there, it just takes a while to come out.
Just timeline, if this were approved at town meeting this year, it will go on the ballot for town elections in 2023 and then be ready in July of
It will go on
2023?
the ballot in November this year.
Oh, in November,
Yes.
so it will be ready for, July of
Next
2023.
July, there would be, the funds would start being collected, the account would start being filled.
okay,
We do have to pass a bylaw to establish this committee. The committee is required to do an assessment of town needs and help them understand priorities and things of that nature. And there's a group called the Community Preservation Coalition. It's a nonprofit group that helps, assists all the communities that are in it. If you ever want to see more about this, go to communitypreservation.org. Their website is terrific. They have a database of every single project that has ever been approved since the 20 years of the program. So, I mean, and you can search it. You can go in swimming pools and see what's come up and get an idea of what's been approved and how much it costs and where it was done. And if you wanted to put in a proposal for that, you go to that town and say, how did you do it, you know? And so that's a very useful thing. So that is, now, I've done what you just did. I forgot what your question was.
how about if I throw another one at you?
Oh, the timing of it, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The timing, yes. So we would put on the ballot in November, so we'd have to get that committee organized and the bylaw passed. The bylaw also has to go through town meeting. So ideally, the bylaw would go through next May town meeting, or even September town meeting. But the bylaw, some communities, according to these people who are helping, some communities didn't get their bylaw worked out for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But the funds still went into the account and they sat there and grew until the bylaw was finally passed, and then they could start spending it. So that didn't affect or delay the implementation of the funding of the program.
So if everything went smoothly, it sounds like July, what time of year do the requests come in?
That's
Need to
up
be
the-
in.
That's up to the bylaw.
Up to the bylaw?
Yep, yep.
So the
It could be an
earliest
annual thing, it can come in at any time.
throughout the year?
We could put some forward in each of the 3 town meetings. Most places collect them for a year and then send it to town meeting.
Okay.
And town meeting can either just say, yep, they all look good, and vote them in one full vote, or they can tear them apart one by one and accept and reject. If they reject one, that money just stays in the pot.
Okay. So it looks like the earliest would be July of 2024, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brendan's already spending.
He's got
money.
it.
No, I'm just thinking of the projects we have coming up and, you know, how that could be worked into, you know, a Community Preservation Act. The community I live in does have it, and, you know, it is well-received.
Good.
So,
Okay, so we'll bring the motion to a
I'll
vote.
put the motion on the floor.
Well, it's
Did
already.
Bill second it?
You said
Okay.
Bill had already
Thank you.
seconded, so we'll bring it to a vote. As I say, Amy said, Warfield said that I should abstain from the vote, so, up front. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and I abstain, so 2-0-1. Bill, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
You,
Good luck.
you say that the whole presentation is so much better than I could ever do it.
Well, this is about my 6th time doing it, so I'm getting it down. I gotta do it again on Thursday to the Committee. No, not the committee, Historical.
Commission.
Commission, no, yes, the commission. No, not the commission, the association, Historical Association. It's not a town thing, but it's voters rather than, town meeting members, more or less, so.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so going back to the agenda, Director of Parks and Recreation report, Brendan Egan.
yes, thank you. Just this time of year, everyone gets antsy to be outside, and our maintenance staff has been hard at work getting the fields ready for play and to open this spring. And the recent cold snap last week and the little bit of snow we got didn't help us. But we anticipate, with the change in weather, the temperatures getting better into the 50s, and hopefully not too much rain this week, but we hope we can open them up soon, the grass fields for everybody. The high school baseball and softball teams are allowed to practice in the outfields right now, and they have some games this week. As long as weather holds out, we anticipate them being able to play their games. Regan Park, we've talked about this in the past. We've cleared the easement that was granted for the pathway, has been researched and recorded, and we're working on a plan to address the flooded walkway. The process will, after speaking with conservation, will require a notice of intent due to the area being wetlands around there. The end goal is to increase, not to increase the water issues, but to, for the abutting properties, but to create a path where the water can flow under and people can access without being soaked or having to wear boots. But once a solution is developed, we'll still need to identify funds to complete that. And I did work with the town's ADA coordinator about a temporary raised walkway, some kind of boardwalk over it, but it does need to be accessible. So looking at the area today, looks like someone helped us and put down some solid, best I can say is pallets. And we'll need to take a look at those and see if we can keep them as a temporary measure and maybe ramp up to them to make them accessible. But I will have to look into those. I do appreciate the help, but the liability of them and maybe the temporary nature may allow us to keep them but I will keep you informed. But we are working towards a more permanent solution. Excuse me, Mary Cummings Park. As you're aware, I sent everyone an email that the trustees of reservations would like to put a conservation restriction on the property, and I asked everyone for their input. I shared the documents with them, so please, if you haven't had a chance to read through them, if you could read through them and send me your questions and your feedback on them. I will be meeting with the trustees, with the town council to go through our concerns so they can start the process of the conservation easement and with the city.
Just a question on that, Brendan. Would it be best to ask that they keep out the fields out of the conservation restriction?
Well, that's something, I think they want to keep the agreement for us to use that area as a field. You know, in the original trust, it does talk about public, you know, playing fields as public, keeping it as a public pleasure ground. Playing fields are in there. You know, in putting a conservation easement on that area, they would, from the initial conversation, would keep the playing field, but it wouldn't allow for lights to ever go up. If that were something we were looking at, it wouldn't allow for the construction of any type of building and you know, that may house irrigation or house lights, if lights did go up, the control units for lights, things like that, so, or even bathrooms down the road, if that was something to do. So definitely, and we have, you know, part of that is Marvin Field, the current Marvin Field, and there is a blockhouse there, there are lights there, so how does that work into it? Would we be able to replace the lights? Would we be able to, you know, if the block building, if someone came down Blanchard Road and decided to go straight down through and smashed into the blockhouse, would we be able to replace it? Those type of things. So those are all considerations. And, you know, is there a possibility to pull that parcel out up on Blanchard Road where we have the multi-purpose field now and pull that out of there? That's something we could talk about as well.
Kevin?
Go, Steve.
Yeah, I always, this kind of rubs me the wrong way when I see these restrictions on the town's ability to use these fields. The reason, in my view, and I looked at the materials that were sent over, the reason they want to put a conservation restriction on this property is because they're not sure the restrictions that were in Mary Cummins' will are enforceable. In Massachusetts, if a restriction is created before 1962, it's good for 50 years. So I know somebody's looking at that and saying, hey, wait a minute now, these restrictions, if Burlington wanted to, they don't even have to abide by them unless they've been renewed. And I haven't done a title search on this property, but I suspect they haven't been renewed. So the only way you can get a permanent restriction in Massachusetts is if you do a conservation restriction, because the statute allows conservation restrictions to be permanent. They have to be approved by the Director of Environmental Affairs at the state. And if we do this, we're gonna be stuck with these restrictions in perpetuity. I don't think that's a good idea. I've mentioned this to Brendan in a telephone call. They always focus, and the state really likes this. They like what they call passive recreational uses. We couldn't put a tennis court over there. We couldn't put a pickleball court over there if we wanted to. Perfect place for one. Can't pave anything, can't put bleachers up. As Brendan said, we can't put buildings up. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't. And I've said this to the selectmen for the last 15 or 20 years. Just take it by eminent domain. Just because a private citizen left something for the benefit of Boston students doesn't mean Burlington couldn't take it by eminent domain if we wanted to. We took the tower area where the water tower is. That's eminent domain. Northeastern, the government took the northeastern site for Nike missiles by eminent domain. They're not exempt from it, but they think that they have us under their thumbs, and in my opinion, they don't. And I don't think that this conservation restriction should be automatic unless it's drastically changed. And I don't think we should approve it at all. But that's just my view, that the town of Burlington should really have this property. We need it more than I think that the city of Boston does. And we're gonna need it even more in the future. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth. I'm not a big fan of conservation restrictions because we don't know what the future holds. And we were talking the other day about pickleball. Who ever heard of pickleball 5 years ago? I haven't heard of it until a year ago. But it's gonna create a need for courts and places to enjoy that recreational activity. None of that could be done under the current, in my view, under the current conservation restriction that they want us to agree to, so. That's my 2 cents, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Oh, excellent, Steve.
Excellent, yeah.
Bill, do you have input, planning board? This is kind of
Yeah,
up
I
your
would-
venue too.
Yeah, I would probably, based on the Steve's comments, is there anything from the Burlington aspect that has restrictions on it today? So, do we have anything on top of kind of Mary Cummings' documentation on that? Do we say we can't put anything on it? Again, I know it can't be built up from a development standpoint, but I think the idea of restrooms or things like that, does Burlington have any constraints on that?
We just re-upped the agreement 2 years ago, I think, for 15 years. And I can share that off the top of my head. I don't know if there's anything additional to what the trust had laid out. I don't think there is, but I can share that. I'll research it and share it with everyone, so you can see that as well.
Okay, so, yeah, I think based on Mr. Nelson's comments, that what's in the benefit of Burlington with this? Again, it limits the flexibility, what we can do as kind of property care holders, if you will, right? To that, versus if you put it in perpetuity and things like Mr. Nelson said, things change, and they're changing very rapidly all the time. And there may be a use that would be prohibitive for that would make sense for maybe Boston and Burlington. So I understand the concern. And perpetuity is a long time. Right?
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Brendan, what does the town want from us? Just feedback, or?
Yeah, so we're the main users of the property, the portion of the property, the Parks and Recreation Department. So they want our feedback, what our concerns are. So they haven't started, any kind of negotiations on this yet. So this is our chance to, share our concerns and, how we'd like to see, what we'd like to see for the future. And definitely a lifetime restriction is, just that. It's forever. And do we want to, handcuff ourselves that way and not be able to add something as simple as maybe a playground up there? Or, if we did want to put irrigation, would that be nixed? And would it, along with the irrigation, if we were able to do that, would we be able to put a pump house, something to house the equipment in? Those type of things. So this is our opportunity. I put it out to everyone a couple weeks ago, and I spoke with town council about getting together to discuss so we can keep the process moving forward. So I will get what's in the agreement, any restrictions in the agreement that's currently signed for the next 15 years, and we will share that with everyone, and then we'll compile concerns and set up a meeting with town council, and they can start.
Go ahead,
Thought,
Steve.
Kevin,
You're great on this.
We
so.
were talking tonight about the possibility of a swimming pool. When I was growing up, I would have loved to have had a swimming pool in Burlington. My mother and father used to take me to the other towns. Couldn't put a swimming pool up there right now, the way this conservation restriction is worded. That's not passive recreational use, which is all they want. It's like walking around, and nothing wrong with that, but I like active recreational uses as well, so.
Mr. Chairman,
And
just
Bill?
one more comment. What if the town doesn't agree to it? I mean, is it something that we have to negotiate, or are we in a position where we say, we'll pass on that and maybe revisit it another time? What's the,
I don't know. We can find out, what our, can we hold it up? Is it, they do need the town's assent on this, definitely. So if we don't, what does that do? Does that hold the whole process up? Something I can find out.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, no. So
Yeah.
Brendan, would it be better if Commissioner Nelson be the contact on this?
That's fine.
Would you want to take that on instead of going Brendan to us?
Sure.
Would you want to just be directly to?
Be happy to do that.
Yeah, so I can work with you when we go to schedule a meeting. If you're available,
I'd-
work it around your schedule,
Yeah,
the
I'd be
two of
happy
us.
to join you.
Sure,
Be happy to do
that
that.
would be great.
Do you mind?
No,
This is something.
it's better than what was I on the rat subcommittee when I first got? Don't put that in the
Oh, wait a minute. Bill, you have a new assignment. But it's something in your expertise
Sure, I'd
that
love to
would
do it.
help tremendously. Yeah, so that would be perfect. Any other comments on that? Yeah, I just look at it that Marvin Field, which we thought we owned, that someone never did paperwork for properly, is in violation of everything there, and
Right.
it'd be a problem down the road. Okay.
All right, next item, as you know, we have, actually, this one goes a little later, under the new business. I think that's all I have for now, until we get to new business.
Okay, excellent. We'll go to Parks Superintendent Report. Bill Baker. Do you want to be William Baker? Would that make you,
Either one is fine.
okay.
Okay, some of the things we've been working on the last couple of weeks, we've been continuing to limb trees around town as needed. We try to limb them up high enough where people can walk under them, and it's the time of the year where we have to start thinking about getting the large mowers out, so we try to limb them up high enough to get the large mowers under. We picked up 20 new barrels today and put them around in the parks and schools to replace about 20 that were rotted. We've brought stone dust to the various stone dust parking lots so that we can resurface them and repair them after the damage that was caused over the winter. There's a lot of ruts in a lot of our parking lots. The large Toro mower has been returned from being serviced, ready to go for the spring. Baseball and softball fields have been getting worked on in preparation for the spring season. As things are starting to warm up, we've been able to start getting the irrigation systems turned on. We have, the bathrooms are all turned on, and a few of the fields have been turned on so far. Bathrooms, as I said, bathrooms at Simons and Rahanis have been cleaned out in preparation for the water to be turned on, which was turned on today and Friday for the new season. And we've been keeping up with the trash at all the parks, schools, and town common.
Okay, questions for Bill? Bill?
Thank you. William, just a question on the porta potty at Simons with the bathrooms turned on there. Does that porta potty up near the playground get taken away, or is it?
Yeah, it will
Okay.
be. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm all
Steve?
set. Thank you. Bill.
Okay, great. Moving on then, programming report, Kelly Lehman.
Thank you. So, excuse me, the programming staff has officially shifted its focus to summer programs. We are working on developing programming for the summer months, working on the summer brochure and hiring our staff. We hope to be able to have a brochure out by the end of April with registration starting shortly after that. We try to go before May 1st so that parents have the best opportunity to put their kids in both school and recreation department programming, so they have all of the information in front of them. So that's our hope, and so far we're on track for that. We started collecting summer employment applications on March 1st. To date, we have less than a dozen applications, and we have about 30 positions that need to be filled. When we talk about the programming that we are looking at offering this summer, we are looking at offering our programs at probably half to 3/4 capacity of what we typically offer, because our staffing levels are that low, and we want to make sure that we stay safe and that we have appropriate ratios in all of our programs. So to try to increase our reach to staff, we have developed a number of hiring events. Our staff was at the high school today during lunches to try to entice some of the students here to apply with us. We also will be there tomorrow. We'll be at the track meet tomorrow, the lacrosse game on Wednesday. We're hosting a hiring event at the Pocket Park right next to Sweet Ginger on Saturday, which we haven't announced yet because we wanted to get through the school lunches first. And then we'll go ahead and start promoting that on Wednesday. And over the next couple weeks, we'll be visiting a number of sporting events in town, trying to talk to parents, talk to students, and just kind of get information out there in regard to our summer employment opportunities. With hiring for summer, we also want to think about our volunteers. Our applications for volunteers went up on Friday. April 1st is our day for volunteers applications to start coming in. We will be working with the middle school, hopefully, the administration at the middle school, to potentially get in lunches there to talk about volunteering and see if we can increase some of our numbers for volunteers, which has kind of dropped off over the past couple of years. We're hoping due to COVID, so we're hoping our numbers bounce back. And the hope is that the more volunteers we get in, the more potential candidates we get on.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a ripple effect and go from there. So we're kind of combating it at all possible fronts at this point. So we're hopeful. If you know anybody who's interested in summer employment, please, have them reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to look at them. We're doing interviews during April vacation. That's the lion's share of our interviews are typically done during April vacation to accommodate the students' schedules. It's the easiest time for us to get everybody in. So we'll be making phone calls to the dozen or so people who we have so far, and hopefully we'll get more in the coming weeks.
Oh, question
Yeah.
is it a money issue? Is it,
Are
are we competitive? We never had a problem before COVID.
We are, we're not as competitive as we used to be, as far as starting salaries are concerned. But this is a situation that we're seeing across the country. It's not unique to Burlington. It's not unique to our profession. There's a lot of reasons. Emma shared a really great article with us over the weekend about how this generation wants to be able to spend their summers. They want to be able to go away with their families. They want to not have to commit to a full 7 weeks. They want to be able to come and go as they please. And we may have to look at how we staff our programs to meet that current mindset. COVID has done has put some really great things in place for us as far as like the use of technology is concerned, and having us relook at how we staff our programs. This is to our detriment at this point. I love that high school students still want to go away on vacation with their families. That's awesome. It's not so awesome for us who are trying to employ them for 7 weeks. The article talked a lot about, maybe only working for 3 weeks of the summer instead of the full 7. And the staffing challenges that brings on, we're not prepared to meet this year. They talk about not having to work full days, having to come in for, 4 hours a day to be able to go and do whatever they need to do in the afternoon, or they're able to sleep later in the morning. Like, that would be also great for a lot of people, I would guess. But at the end of the day, that's not feasible for us, especially not this year. We're not prepared to make those shifts this year. As part of my TR section, I was going to talk about Emma learned a lot of information when she went to the American Camp Association National Conference in Portland. We are restructuring the way that we are training our staff, the way that we are going to look at our staff this summer, with a real focus on core values within our department and within our summer program specifically. So we're hoping that is met with positivity from our staff that we do have on site. And that, that positivity spreads throughout our staff and people want to come and work for us. We are working on a new incentive program. Incentives are also something that this generation seems to be looking for. They want midday snacks and they would like a longer lunch break. There's a number of things that they've identified that they would like to be able to do to come to work for us. it's not feasible in our programming the way it exists now. So we are taking what we can and manipulating it how we can to be able to address some of the concerns, but honestly, I think it's a national problem. Our colleagues across the country are dealing with the same situations.
Steve had a question.
Hey, Kelly, what are the hours that these positions require, and when does the year start, and when does it end?
So we start the last week in June, so like school ends, we start. We run until, this year we're gonna run June 22nd. Our staff would be required to be there, or 23rd, depending on the last day of school, through August 12th. It's 7 weeks that they're required to be there. We have a number of different program options. They could be hired to work 8:30 to 4:30. We have some programs that work 9 to 1. We have the waiting pool, which is staffed at all different times throughout the season. Sometimes it's just weekends they work. They come and work just the waiting pool on Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes they just work Tuesday, Thursday at the waiting pool. Like, we have a number of options for different commitment levels for the staff across the board, which I think will play in our favor eventually.
Okay. I will mention it to my son, he's the high school track coach.
Yes,
There's
please
70
do.
75 boys on that track team.
We can
And
send you over some information with a QR code that they can just apply right away.
Send it to me.
All right, well,
Okay.
we'll do that tomorrow.
Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think when you talked about the pool, with my kids that did that, they found the flexibility of that, and then they could trade off hours with the other
Yep.
folks that were on that schedule, so they could take a day and go to the beach and, go away for the weekend
Yep.
by working with the other supervisors there in the pool. So I understand where the challenge is in hearing it from my kids and their friends that have worked for the rec in the past. You have to work every day if you're doing club assignments, for example, with no ability to take time off, and it's a full day. So I understand that, and those kids want to sleep late if they're in the college years particularly. They're used to probably sleeping late on the weekends particularly, so they're probably, it's a bit of a challenge.
I would like to say in the last several years, we have really come a long way as far as our time off policy is concerned. It used to be you work all 35 days of the summer. That's the reality of it. It's 35 days. Now we allow people to take up to a week off as long as it's within a week, and we can get covered. Like, there's a number of things that we have put in place to try to meet some of our staff halfway with concerns such as that.
And when we do allow vacations, right, a lot of them want the same times off. So it becomes difficult to staff the programs, as Kelly said, appropriately for those same weeks.
Right.
If, a third of the staff wants the same week off, it really requires magic by the staffs, to try to get it staffed accordingly. So, as Kelly said, we're not prepared this summer to meet those demands, and quite frankly, I don't know if next year we'd be able to do that as well. And hopefully this is, as we get further away from the pandemic, that it becomes, maybe just a pandemic-driven thing, but it's been coming for a couple of years, less and less people. And we are, maybe a little bit less competitive than we used to, but, 20 years ago, we used to have teachers coming to us in the summer, hey, I want a job, and we had our pick, right? So now we're at the other end, but we're not alone there either. There are private companies that are paying a lot of money to hire people, but you're at their whim, right? So if they tell you this is your schedule, that's what you have to work. Where us, working for us, it's a little more standard schedule Monday through Friday, but there are those flexible options, half day, certain days of the week if you want to work like the waiting pool or something like that. So doing our best without, having it affect programs, but at some point it will affect the program and how it operates. So, which is the end user, really suffers.
Yep.
So.
Kelly, if we're discussing budget later on, is it a salary thing that we should up our part-time number in that budget now? Is it a money, if we're
I
not
don't-
competitive?
I don't know that, we spoke with the administration at the high school, for example, and we talked about the salary and what we would, starting rate would be. Our pay is negotiable, we do have some flexibility as far as our budget is concerned. And they seem to think that our price point is fine. I think part of the problem, and something that we don't necessarily talk about a lot, is the competition of programming across the board has grown quite a bit, even in the last 5 or 10 years, right? Even throughout the pandemic, we're competing with private companies, we're competing with the school district, we're competing with other local rec departments, which we've done a salary survey, we're on par with about what they're paying as well. When we go into private companies and we look at like a Wegmans, let's say, they start more than we do. But again, it's that having difficulty getting staff coming in, so everybody is kind of increasing their starting salaries. And where do we stop? Like, where do we say this is what this rate is? I don't know. I don't know if we put more money in, if that's gonna be the difference. It seems to me that based on all of the research we've done and all of the articles we've read, it's not about the money, it's about the value of the time.
Personal time.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, they want to be able to do what they want to do with their time.
And be
Because they
paid
still
when they're
have-
not doing what they,
They,
what they don't want to
That
do.
sounds like a good gig, what can I get?
I know,
Right.
well, it does.
I
And
mean, and a lot of them are spending a lot more time at home, and their parents are contributing more than they used to. It just kind of is our reality.
And I think you're seeing a shift in, you know, people's vacation time and personal time. You know, like you see in Europe, there's more value put on, right, vacation time, time off of work. But you know, it's hard for us because it's a 7-week seasonal employment, and, you know, if they want 4 of those 7 weeks off, it's difficult, so.
And the other problem with that, Kevin, if I'm being honest, is that we're getting close to what our full-time salaries are, as far as what we're paying our hourly directors, staff members. There are people in our department who are right within pennies of where our full-time staff are. So if we're gonna look at salaries, we really need to look at salaries across the board. And I know that's a different discussion, but we are getting dangerously close to paying our seasonal staff more than our full-time staff.
Oh my God. I'm starting to think like my father. You know, he would say something like, the younger generation isn't working as hard as us. Why would you buy a house for $125,000? That is outrageous.
That would be a great deal these days.
But yeah, you have a problem.
Well,
Yeah, everyone
we
has a
have a
problem.
problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's something that, you know, we're not gonna solve it tonight, we're not gonna solve it overnight, but it is something that, you know, we have many conversations on, and what's the best way, you know, to approach it, and that approach changes. You know, we think we have it one way, and then we find out, oh, you know, this company is offering a $200 sign-on bonus if you work for, you know, 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, you can get, so, you know, someone will commit to that. It's $200 in their pocket at the end of 8 weeks that they were gonna work anyways, you know, and that's not something we can hand out. So we are looking at creative ways to keep our staff.
Yeah,
So-
I think the play of, you know, looking at the middle school for volunteers, I know with my kids, you know, parlaying the volunteer activity, that messaging is important to say, hey, if you volunteer for a year or two, you roll right into a job in the summer, outdoor, you know, that that sounds, you know, like, at least it worked for my kids, you know, where they saw that as kind of the carrot at the end of that, and that,
Yeah, and if in the
Well-
beginning of the pandemic, we weren't allowed volunteers, so there was an
Right.
entire year where we didn't
yeah,
have any
yeah, so you
volunteers.
had the gap there.
So like, we're hitting that
Yeah,
3-year mark where we would
Yeah.
have volunteers who had been with us for 2
Right.
years. But we have to kind of rebuild that
You get
program
that
from the
stream.
ground up. So we're spending the time now to try to do that, to try to combat it. This year might be a little tough for us, but I think in the future years, we're making the right moves now to be able to put us in a better position moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. On the flip side, parents rely on the recreation department to keep their kids busy for the summer, and it's probably the same kids that we could use working now, a
Right.
few years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
The last thing within
And
my.
done something good.
Yes. Well, the last thing within my report are special events. Easter is our favorite time to use puns in the recreation department, so you will see a ton of puns within our writing. Our egg excursion went off. Oh, it starts tomorrow. We were out hiding eggs today. We were very egg excited to be out there. We're thinking that there might be some egg spurt hunters. There's a way to gather points within each of our park systems. It's a scavenger hunt. It's fun. There's QR codes on each of the eggs that you'll find. Register through our department. You'll get a list of facilities where you might be able to find eggs. There are extra eggs out there hidden, so you can get extra points. It's a fun time. The scavenger hunt will go for a week, and then prizes will be awarded based on the amount of points that you receive as a family. Our bunny hop is Friday. We're gonna hop till you drop with the Easter bunny, doing some dancing. That's a virtual program that we're offering. We weren't sure where we might be in the pandemic when we had to plan these in December, so we wanted to make sure that we had lots of options. And then finally, we decided to bring our traditional egg hunt back. It's at Simon's on April 14th. We'll have age-divided hunts. The Easter bunny will be there. We'll have crafts and games, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of puns by all of our staff.
What time is the egg hunt on Thursday?
On Thursday, 5:30.
Okay, up to it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yep, okay. Let's see, chairman's report. I think we're missing Tom. Tom's Murphy. This was gonna be his last meeting. So we'll have to bring him back for one meeting to recognize him when he leaves. Any subcommittee reports?
Just something very brief, Mr. Chairman. I was asked to attend the open meeting law presentation by town council a couple
Oh,
of
did
weeks
you
ago. I
make
don't
it?
know how many of you did that, but it did not go 2 hours. It went an hour and a half. And town council made a nice presentation, cited a lot of recent cases. Most of it I think we've already known because we've been training on the open meeting law over the years. A couple of things she did say, though, that I wasn't aware of. Talking about new business and how they're really cracking down on itemizing new business and not discussing it until the next meeting. So if we have public participation and somebody comes before us, raises new issues that aren't on the agenda, we're supposed to thank them and say, we're gonna put that on our agenda for our next meeting and invite them to come back, which is exactly what Peter did. I was talking to him in the parking lot at the recycling, hazardous waste recycling, and I said,
That's why
that's what
he
we're
did that?
supposed to do. I think so, yeah, we're supposed to do it that way, and I've been sitting in meetings for years, and I was never told that, but that's the result of new interpretations of the open meeting law that have come down recently. So that's what we're supposed to do, because everybody is supposed to know what we're gonna discuss and deliberate on, and if somebody comes into a meeting and they bring up a new topic, that doesn't give the public the opportunity to participate in that conversation. So I thought that was informative. The only other thing she told me that I wasn't aware of is that, and the Attorney General has okayed the approval of minutes by members who did not attend the meeting that the minutes concern, which is why I voted on it tonight. I wasn't at the last meeting. But she said, absolutely, there's no question that any member can vote on minutes as long as they've read them. So, so sometimes, I know, you might struggle for a quorum, and say, oh, we'll put off voting on the minute. You don't have to do that. So those are the two big things I picked up from that seminar, so I just wanted to share those with everybody.
Excellent. Amy Warfield sent me a copy of the training, so I
Oh,
can
good.
watch it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to see it. So that is good. So just to clarify on that, so if we make something part of the agenda, a resident wants to come in and discuss something, if it's on the agenda, can we vote on it?
Yes, if it's on our agenda. And there has to be a fair description of what it is, not just new business. It's got to be new business to discuss, whatever, Mr. Picola. That's why Peter should tell you, Brendan, what he wants to talk about
Okay.
with a little bit of specificity, and we'll put it right on the agenda for our next meeting.
So, and you were referring to if someone comes for public participation, the chair calls them and they talk about something, we can have a brief discussion, but to take any type of vote, put it on the agenda for a future meeting so that the public has a chance to come back, correct?
The way she presented it was, thank them for offering what's on their mind, not even discuss it, just put it on the agenda. Discuss
put
it
it on
at the next meeting.
Okay.
The number of times we have citizens' time?
So it won't be a big hardship, I know.
Right, it won't be that much of a problem. It just means, Brendan, we have to be a little bit more thorough on the agenda, which you've been doing great on, so. Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
Thank you, that's,
those are important things that she brought up.
okay. New business, vote on to award the Treehouse contract?
Yes. So as you know, we've been working with the Simons Trust on some special projects for a couple of years. Last summer, we were approached by a local family that was looking to make a sizable donation of $100,000 to a Parks and Recreation Department project. After providing the family with a list of upcoming projects, they chose the Simons Park Treehouse as the project they wanted to be involved with. We've worked out the details with the family and the members of the Simons Trust, and will be proceeding with the project later this summer. The total project cost will be $200,000 and will be funded by a donation from the family and the Simons Trust. I'm requesting that the commission vote to award the contract for the construction of the treehouse to the Treehouse Guys LLC of Warren, Vermont, in the amount of $200,000.
Okay, would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make it, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission vote to award the contract for the construction of the treehouse to the Treehouse Guys LLC of Warren, Vermont, in the total amount of $200,000.
Okay, second for discussion.
Okay,
So I was doing a little disc golf in the woods, and I said, so where are we planning to put that? Because I saw a lot of stuff, but when you start off on hole one, there's a QR code for disc golf, and it goes to a Facebook page, and there's a lot of chatter now on the revised disc golf course. So I was just thinking as I was walking through, if there's a tree house there, you got people throwing discs, what's
The
plan?
treehouse would go above the skate park, between the Visco building and the skate park area, the beginning of the courts. There's 3 or 4 oak trees in there. So you would come down the driveway between, the playground's on your right, and you come down the Visco buildings in your front, come down that driveway. If you look straight ahead as you get next to the Visco building, right in that grove of trees.
Okay, and that's where hole 9 comes up. And, so yeah, if you're gonna change the hole 9 or keep the hole 9, you're probably gonna be throwing discs.
Nope,
probably
it
in
won't
the area.
be interfering with that at all.
So.
That's behind the Visco building, the hole in the proposed new hole location
Okay.
wouldn't be through there. It would be,
a little more to the left.
yeah, to the left
To the left,
of the
'cause I saw
Visco
a tree
building.
there where you took some big limbs down, is that the proposed area?
Nope,
That area?
stuff came down there and we just cut it up. Those were pines. These are not going in the pines, they're going
Okay.
into the oaks.
Okay, thank you. And just, that's gonna be ADA, there'll be like ramps, for, the concern is liability there, and,
Completely accessible.
right, something like a Disney World type of treehouse or a Storyland type of treehouse where you have ramps going up and.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah. Treehouse Masters or whatever that's on TV, that Pete Nelson, similar to that, like a big treehouse with a round hexagon shape at the top that will be completely accessible, ramps up to it, providing a teaching area plus a play area.
and will that be on TV, you think, with the building of that? Will-
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure BCAT would love to cover it at the time, but there's no commitment now.
No, I
It's
mean
the-
from a national scale.
Oh, no. No, this is a completely different company.
Okay,
Sorry.
yep.
But BCAT will probably be more than happy to
Oh, sure.
cover it. They're pretty good with us, so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was a good question. Good question. Any other discussion on it?
No.
Okay. I'll move the motion then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, so 3-0-0. Okay.
Are we gonna name, one quick question, are we gonna name this treehouse after the donor?
I believe, right now, there will be a plaque there, with both the Simons Trust and the family name on it.
Mm-hmm,
Nice.
okay.
And there's no other new business then, so old business. We have the fiscal year '23 warrant article discussion, and basically the warrants that we voted on. One of them is pavement, and the pavement price has gone up significantly because of the oil prices. So, in the same with the truck, so we need to revote those with a higher amount.
Sure, so originally we had discussed for the renovation of the basketball courts, the total price being $210,000 with the, conflict in the Ukraine causing oil prices to soar, as well as just the inflation in our economy now, keeping an eye on prices. It was determined that those prices would see an increase. So the first item we have was for a Ford F-350 pickup. We were originally at $47,000, and currently we'd be all in if we can get the vehicle anytime soon. After July 1st, we'd be safe at $49,000. So I am requesting the commission vote to approve the new amount of $49,000 for the Ford F-350 pickup truck for that warrant article for FY '23.
Okay, so we want to make that motion
Motion made?
by Bill, second by
Steve?
Steve.
Second.
Discussion is what it is.
So I think the motion that technically is to amend our prior approval, just to
Correct.
increase
Yes,
the
sorry,
number.
to amend the
Okay.
prior, yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
All right, so if there's no other discussion, we'll vote to amend the prior warrant article to the amount of $49,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, so 3-0-0. And then we'll go to the next one.
Yep, the other item was for the renovation of the Simons Park basketball courts. So I'm requesting the commission vote to amend the prior approved amount of $210,000 to $230,000 for the Simons Park basketball court renovation warrant article for FY '23.
Want to make that
Motion
motion?
made, yeah.
Okay,
Second.
second by Steve. So we would like to amend, vote on the amendment to the warrant article to $230,000 for the Simons tennis courts. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, so 3-0-0.
The last one I have, I've been waiting on an amount for this, but the will of Marshall Simons. So I'd like to request that the commission vote to accept a to-be-determined amount disbursement from the will of Marshall Simons. We will need this vote for the warrant article to be placed on the warrant for town meeting. So requesting, again, a vote to approve the acceptance of a to-be-determined amount from the Simons Trust for FY '23.
Okay, before we
make that
make the
motion.
motion, can you make it that way?
Yeah, I believe, we can always have a TBD in there.
Yes.
It's a placeholder, and we'll have a number before Maytown
As
meeting.
soon as
right?
we have the number, yes, I will
Okay.
share that with everyone, and we can vote on that official number. I have requested it and have not heard back. So I know it depends on, obviously, the financials of the trust, and the Bank of Boston, or Bank of America, who oversees the funds, is working on that figure.
So I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we vote to accept a gift from the will of Marshall Simons in an amount to be determined.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, so 3-0-0. Okay, that should be it for old business?
One other item, the FY '23 budget.
Oh, excuse me, yeah.
So, the other item we have is, we will be appearing before Ways and Means. We had a couple delays in getting, onto the agenda there, but, we will be appearing before Ways and Means on Wednesday, April 6th at 7 PM. And we will be presenting our FY '23 budget that you voted on at our February 14th meeting. That budget has a 2.27 increase and includes the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation position. There has been conversation amongst the Ways and Means Committee that they are not looking to add new positions or full-time equivalents to the FY '23 budget. If Ways and Means does not support the budget as presented, we have prepared an option B that we are going to present. So this budget includes additions to part-time salaries, overtime, materials and supplies, and melt. The additions to the part-time salaries and overtime, we hope will allow us to continue to operate effectively without having to cut too many services. The overall budget increase of this option B budget would be 1.89 and still below the 3% guideline. I did share a copy of that budget with you last week and can talk about some of the increases to part-time.
Okay, before you go there, Steve, since you've been on fire on all these things, if we vote an option B, can we vote an option B? Or if we vote this budget, can we not?
Yeah, we've never done that on the school committee over all my years, having a fallback plan. It's not a bad idea.
In conversation with our Ways and Means Subcommittee, they did ask if we would have another option that they would like to vote on. And if it means going back the next week or, presenting it that night, however we want to do it. I just think that there are, if we're not going to be able to get a full-time, the budget passed because of the full-time position in there, which I'm not sure if we won't get it passed, but I want to be prepared with an option B that does address some of the concerns.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I just don't know the legal answer to that question, whether you can have two budgets, a primary and then an alternate. But we're running out of time, I think.
Right.
The reason I asked the question is if we give them an alternate, then we don't get a chance to plead our case for the original budget and the new person.
Well, I think we present that, and if they vote against it, then that's when we would ask to withdraw that option, the original budget, and present them with a second option.
Doesn't that mean, though, Brendan, that you'd have to meet with the subcommittee ahead of time and go over the Plan B?
They did not indicate that, so I can
Yeah.
check with them. But I think if we want to be prepared with that, do we discuss it tonight?
Well, I'm all in favor of having a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to cheat you the opportunity to at least plead your case to Ways and Means on why you want an additional employee.
Mm-hmm.
And at least let them hear your concerns in justification. If they, I definitely want to have a backup. I just don't want you to not have your opportunity, or us to have our opportunity to plead our case.
Can I make a comment? Maybe if we schedule a meeting for next Monday, see what happens on Wednesday. If they don't support our primary budget on Wednesday, we'll tell them we'll go back and rethink the budget, and we'll vote on it the following Monday, go back to Ways and Means the following Wednesday.
That's fine. That's what I was getting at. I thought we would have the discussion tonight for that option B, and we can, we can say, well, we'd like to, as you said, like to come back at a future time. If we approve this tonight, we don't have to have another meeting on Monday because we would have approved the option B, but we can represent to them after their subcommittee has had a chance to meet with us and look at it.
Yeah.
But if you want to just push it to next Monday, we present. If they choose not to approve the budget with a position in it, then, we say to them, well, we'd like to come back next week with another budget. That gives time to, for us to have that meeting and discuss it, as well as have our subcommittee meet with us. So they know going in
That would
what
be
that
my
option B
preference,
is.
Kevin, I think you're right. I think we shouldn't have a Plan B when we go to the,
Right,
go to
right,
the Wednesday.
Well, I'm not gonna share the Plan B with them, but that was for us to have that discussion and be prepared to come back to a future meeting. But if we can have that discussion on what an option B would be tonight,
Definitely.
then we don't have to necessarily meet next Monday, but I can meet with the Ways and Means Subcommittee prior to getting on their agenda for next Wednesday night.
Okay, everyone comfortable with
Okay.
that? Can we still do Zoom meetings?
I believe we can, I have to double check, I believe we can still do Zoom up through
July 15th,
July, yeah, thank you,
Town Council.
yes. Thank you.
So
See, I didn't sleep
if we,
through that thing.
if we need to do another vote, we can do it by Zoom. and,
Sure,
And it doesn't have to be anything lengthy then. So why don't you describe what the changes would be,
sure.
if we had to change the budget?
Thank you. There would be an additional $20,000, $20,424 in the Recreation Division part-time account. It would be, we added back in a marketing coordinator, portion of the marketing coordinator position. There is addition, for our middle school parks program, we would see a 60-40 split. We were at 70-30 before. It would be a 60-40 split, so the part-time portion that the town picks up would be a little higher. And we have an additional staff in our Park Place program. We had taken one staff out prior, but we would have 3 directors and 7 staff in there, so we added a staff member back in. In our therapeutic recreation portion of the budget, we put the salaries, Kelly talked a little earlier about appropriate salaries and for our seasonal staff and our full-time staff. We were able to put people at appropriate staffing levels to attract people. That's one program that we would be able to bump the salaries to an appropriate level so we don't lose them to other departments. And then we would also have our hours for our programming in the therapeutic division bumped back up. As we come out of the pandemic, we kept our hours at what they were, but there is a need in to get our hours back to pre-pandemic levels. That's hours for the program itself, for therapeutic, in our therapeutic division, to get those back to pre-pandemic levels. In our, sorry, lots of papers here.
Brendan, can I just?
Yep.
We also added a permanent sub position back in that
Sorry.
we had taken out, that we were gonna raise fees.
Yes, so we were gonna have to, thank you, Kelly, raise fees in some of our programming, Club Simons especially, in order to cover an additional sub. We had 2 last year. We went back to 1 this year, but we would go back to 2, and that does a lot, covers in the summer for people to have time off. So having a quality person that's sub that can do a bunch of different things, so we would be adding a second one back in. Thank you for that reminder. as well as there were increases in our, sorry, getting to the pages, in the overtime, in the recreation division, in order to, as we crank back up and get busier and busier, in order to cover the hours that are being worked by our program division, and to pay out for hours worked over the 120 that they can accrue. We did have to increase the overtime. It was a $10,000 increase, which is I think it comes out to 108% increase. For the recreation division, it basically doubles the overtime that was available to them, especially around special events and during the summer where they are regularly working, 40 to 45 hours a week, and they were, they're scheduled for 35. So we do need to be able to cover that. We did increase the melt, which is the professional, I'm blanking on the melt, municipal expenses and local travel. That covers our certifications for the staff. It covers conferences and professional development, as well as our membership in state and national associations. Those rates have all increased. We've been able to, kind of stay even with them or take money out of the revolving account to cover those, but it is something that should be covered in the general fund portion of the budget. And then on our maintenance division, we had increases in our part-time. We had cut 2 seasonal positions and we added those back in. We will need that help. And then our materials and supplies was increased for our fertilization and field maintenance program. We did add $20,000 to that, and that was done so we don't have to take out of the revolving as much to cover those costs. And we are doing more fields and more properties, so we do need to increase those costs to cover the increase in the number of fields, but also the materials that we are purchasing. As we talked back in, I believe it was November, we set aside $25,000 from our revolving account to pre-purchase supplies. We made a really good decision there because we have all our supplies in and there is a huge shortage in seed, fertilizer. Some items were back ordered and I think they came in last week, but there's other towns and entities that did not pre-order that are gonna be looking for product. So we did increase there as well. As we bring on more fields into the program, we need to be prepared for those increases.
Okay, questions for Brendan?
I'd say the only other comment I would have is that I did not pre-order my fertilizer this year and had a bit of sticker shock
Yeah.
this past weekend, so I would concur with that.
Okay.
Just quick comment. Some of these things that are in this supplemental or option B budget look really important. Almost like it's gonna be tough to get by if we go with option A. Might put a strain on things anyway. And I know we only so much you can do in one budget.
Right, and we are trying to be responsible in that original budget. We took advantage of a point where we had some shifts in positions where new people were working in new positions, and their salaries were lower than the people they replaced. And we looked at that in the first budget as this was a year, something we had been working on for a couple of years with this position and felt it slotted in nicely, and we were able to stay under the 3%. Now, if we had added, some to the overtime and things like that, it wouldn't have all fit. We wouldn't have been under the 3%, and we were trying to be responsible, be under the 3% guideline.
Well, I fully support adding the new position, and I'm hoping that we're successful Wednesday night with that request. I think it's important, and as Mr. Murphy said, I think at one of our earlier meetings, if you can justify an increase in personnel, generally Ways and Means will support it. So hopefully they do support it. I think we can more than justify it. Just looking at the number of programs, I mean, that's a compelling number, from 220 to what, 480?
Yep.
I mean, it's compelling, so. We'll be ready on Wednesday evening, and hopefully Ways and Means will be receptive.
Okay, excellent. So, if no one has any other questions on the budget, why don't we schedule our next meeting to be a week from today?
You want to do Zoom?
And we'll do Zoom?
Sure.
Okay, if it's 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes, but, and if we don't need to do it for our budget, we won't have it. Okay?
Okay.
That is excellent. So that is April 11th. Brendan will reach out to everyone and figure out what's a good time. If you have court and you're back from work, and then Dave's super flexible, I can be flexible. Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
excellent. And is there any need for executive session?
No.
No, okay. And then entertain a motion to adjourn?
A
So
couple of things. if I may,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Just on the pickleball side of things, I know there's a comment there. We'll meet with the residents. The acoustic blocks, it looks like it was ordered and coming in. Is that correct?
Yes, I just said to Bill, I have a couple things. Yeah, it will be, I got the tracking information today, it will be it's scheduled to be in Wednesday. So then we'll have to work on an install. And I think you guys had discussed meeting once it was installed with the neighbors to talk about.
Yeah, I think my point is, I'd like to, again, get out there and listen once the nets are up, to hear kind of a before and after with the acoustic block we have today, and then with the nets up and the things really going full bore, what it sounds like before and after for that. So, do we have an idea of when the nets are gonna come up for pickleball?
Kind of been focusing on high school sports fields
Yep.
first. But I would say in the next couple weeks, as the weather gets a little bit better and there's not a lot of rain in the forecast.
So can we, even though we get the acoustic block in, can we have a period of time when the nets will be up, we'll have some sound going on, and then there's an opportunity for us to all get down there and listen? I'm gonna actually record it being the same spot over, where there's not acoustic block over near the softball field. If it can be, I'll be over there to listen to it before and after and see if I can get a difference in sound there. So I kind of would look for dates of when that might happen, once we get going,
Yeah.
If you want to keep us posted on that.
Bill?
This is gonna fall on Bill's schedule and when he can get it installed and when
no
it
rush, but
arrives.
just to
So-
get the schedule so I can say, okay, the nets are up, so then the hordes of people will come down there, I can listen, I can record, and then let me know when the acoustic blocks, I'll be down there, so I'll be able to check it out when they're up, and then I'll do the same thing at the same place at the same time.
So you're saying that's up before the acoustic block?
I would say, nets up before the acoustic block, yeah. And I know maybe we're waiting for that just from a neighbor's standpoint, but just to get a sense of the before and after sound, I think it's important.
We can talk about that and then share that date once it's, because he has to schedule all of his
Sure.
guys and all the work
Yeah,
that has
'cause
to be
it is-
done.
They're heavy and it's a big deal to get them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus all the other field openings and things that
Yeah,
have to go
for
on.
the- That'd
so.
be good to have the discussion with the neighbors, and, to kind of set a baseline before and a baseline after, I think would be important. And just my other thought, thank you for that. The other thought was on the disc golf. But the first told is that sign kiosk, there's got a QR code. It's not to the rec department, but it's to the Facebook page, the unofficial Facebook page that someone's working off of. So I don't know if that's something that we want to keep up there, or have the QR code to the Burlington Rec up there, or typically it's something by the, when you go to hiking trails and they have a little sign kiosk there, it's usually for stuff that's official to that particular
Yep.
group. This one's an unofficial Facebook group, which is good. There's a lot of good discussion on that. But I'm not sure that's what you want to have up there, or have our own QR code up
I
there.
think I know the creators, so I can
Yep.
work with them on, maybe directing that to, or us putting up our own
Yep,
there. I think what they were trying to do is just,
yeah, just get
Yeah,
the word out,
get
get
it- yeah.
feedback, and I think, and things, the intention's good.
Yeah,
I just,
yep.
just, anybody can put up their own QR code. It looks very official, that it looks like it goes to the Burlington Rec, but it does, I think there is a caveat on there, says it's not the official one, so it does direct you to the Burlington Rec, once you get on the Facebook page. On the Facebook page, it looks like we're gonna go with concrete pads versus the turf, which I would agree with. The disc golf courses that I've been on around, locally here and then around the country, most of the pads are concrete, they're not the turf, so I think that's kind of a best in class. And I think they were talking about different sizes of that, the way they're gonna redesign it now. They said that the redesign's pretty much done, or have you seen that, at least the chatter on the Facebook page?
So they've sent it, nothing has been agreed to. So concrete pads have not been agreed to. It might be a preference, but we have to, look at what can actually be done in the woods. I've walked the course with them prior to the holiday season, and talked about some different hole locations and how they could design it to keep it away from the more public, uses, playgrounds, athletic fields, so they're not throwing across or next to.
Right.
But to be honest with you, I think they sent out a revised, their idea in February, maybe March, and, we have a number of other things going
Sure.
on in the department that it has not been a front burner
Sure.
topic for me, so.
Can you send that along to me? I wouldn't mind taking a
Sure.
look at that. Yeah, but I would be an advocate, actually, of the concrete pads. There, I know a lot of them currently, you've got the roots around it, but any other place you kind of go does have the concrete pads, and if it's not prohibitive, that's, I think that's probably the better way to do that, because then what you're doing is, you're not tripping over the areas themselves, and then they all get worn down, so you just, over time, they're gonna, like they have today, they're basically pits. You probably, I think concrete's best practice if it's possible to do it, and not prohibitive, cost prohibitive, so. I think they said it was like $150 per pad or something they had thrown out there for a concrete one. And I know the turf's free, but you still have to prep it up like you would for the concrete, so, just my comments on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent.
Yep.
We should put the turf down on Mall Road. That's Center
In
Island.
between the Center Island. Except without the marks, without the,
Well, you could go in between. Bill's thinking that's a good idea, isn't it?
Sure.
That grass will never grow. It was stupid to put there.
it would be very difficult to
Yeah.
imagine to keep that grass
Okay,
there.
so, and if we need to make it an agenda item, Brendan, if we talk about disc golf after listening to Steve and the open meeting law, we should do that.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And if you're gonna send out emails when things are, send it to the whole committee.
Yep.
So everyone can go up in here
Oh,
before and
just
after.
one more thing, if I can, talking back about pickleball. The sign there that says start at 8 o'clock in the morning, one of the zip ties is off, so we might wanna just kinda tidy that up over there. But, the more I thought about it with the neighbors, and we could talk about pickleball, but, the 8 AM start, it says in the sign, doesn't make sense for me, at least, with the neighbors. Maybe think about changing that to a little bit later.
It was gonna be part of our overall discussion.
Okay.
I don't wanna make any changes. There's a sign there that needs to be changed, but I don't wanna change it now and then
Yeah,
meet
change it
in
again.
30 days and
Yep, okay.
change it again.
Thank
So,
you, Mr. Chairman.
trying to be,
Yep,
We need to make that as an open discussion
Yep.
for whoever shows up.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Both sides will probably show up for that.
Yeah, it looked like it was on the director's report, though. We
Yes.
just hadn't gotten to that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, so, and entertain a motion to adjourn then?
so made.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, so 3-0-0.